call the October 21st meeting of the school committee to session. If everyone will join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start by reading the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the unceded ancestral homeland of Indigenous people whose enduring presence we humbly recognize. We honor the Wampanoag people as the original stewards and the Herring Pond Wampanoag as the surviving tribe indigenous to these lands. In our commitment to lifelong learning, we acknowledge historical injustices to the native people of this land and vow to educate ourselves, our community, and our students on the First Peoples and the hardships they endure. We offer this as a small but essential step towards building a culture of respect, truth, and accountability. Thank you. And our first, no, I thought I was in the meeting, but now I'm not. Okay, here we go. We're going to do a moment of silence. And that moment of silence, we will take a moment to honor the memory of a remarkable educator and beloved member of our community, Nancy Cormier, who passed away on September 14th at the age of 73 after courageous battle with cancer. Nancy was not only a devoted wife, loving mother, and cherished grandmother, but she was also an inspiring teacher who dedicated her life to shaping young minds. Born in Newport, Rhode Island, and a proud graduate of Rogers High School, she later pursued her dreams of teaching at Bridgewater State University. Her passion for education led her to Plymouth South Middle School, where she touched the lives of countless students and colleagues. Nancy's dedication to her students and her commitment to education will be remembered and cherished by all who had the privilege of knowing her. As we take a moment of silence, let's reflect on the impact Nancy had on our community and honor her memory. Thank you. Thank you all for taking that moment of our meeting. And now we have comments from community members. Do we have anybody wishing to speak during open? Okay, perfect. I will forego reading our statement then. And then our next piece of business is we've got our student representative. We have Lillian Lily, sorry. I bet you don't like to think I'm being yelled at, so no, Lily, sorry, to give us the student representative's report for Plymouth South. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. So to start off, congratulations to the boys cross country team who clinched their 6th straight Patriot League title. Great job by the athletes and coaches. Also, congratulations to PSHS golfers Cam Tetler and Lucas Bartlett, who qualified and competed in the Division I South Sectional State Qualifying Tournament at Acushnet River Valley Golf Club. We had our NIAS Collaborative Conference visit the week of October 6th at PSHS. The team was very impressed with PSHS and they met with parents, administrators, teachers, and students. We'll have the report in about a month to share with the school community. Tuesday night last week, we hosted the annual college fair at Plymouth North. During the day, staff wore t-shirts with favorite colleges to show support of the fair. Juniors last week also participated in the PSATs during the school day at PSHS. We had the annual captain's breakfast at South, where North and Fall sport captains joined together to hear speaker Rob Costa. Rob was recently paralyzed, yet is participating in an Ironman in the coming weeks. His story about grit and not giving up was inspirational. This Saturday, stop by PSHS for some spooky fun. The baseball team is running their haunted house fundraiser at the stadium at 6 p.m. PSHS has gone gold and pink over the last few weeks. We're proud to report we raised close to $2,600 for going gold and over $750 towards breast cancer awareness. The South field hockey team truly went above and beyond with both events. Plymouth South High School was recently notified that seniors Colin Costa and Brody Newhouse were named commended students in the 2025 National Merit Scholarship Program. A letter of commendation from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation was presented to both talented seniors. This past weekend, both the dance and cheer teams from South participated in the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Also on the sports front, winter sports sign-ups will be Monday, October 28th during K-Block, and Meet the Coaches will be in early November. The senior class had a beautiful day on October 11th for their Oktoberfest celebration. Colin Ducey and Jack Horvath were crowned cornhole champions. And finally, congratulations to our PSHS students and teachers who participate in AP courses. We were recently recognized as a silver AP school. In prior years, we had received the bronze distinction. The students and teachers make these things happen. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No, thank you so much for that report. Always so much going on, so we appreciate it. All right, and then we have our solar project proposal presentation. Dr. Blaisdell, or?
Want to do the introductions?
Actually sent other slides, Adam. I have them on a hard drive too.
Is there another set? There's another set on the agenda.
Bless you.
There should have been two. There was a PowerPoint one. We got it. Should come up.
Yeah, here we go.
Back up just in case.
Smart.
Ha-
Yes, please. So tonight we have Mike Cahill, who works out, he'll give you his specific title from the town, and Adam Teff, who we work quite a bit with when we talk about solar. He does a lot of our energy, solar energy, all sorts of different things, contracts and through Eversource, and does a lot with us and helps us predict our budget from year to year to year, and then manages a lot of our solar power and electricity on the back end that you don't necessarily see, but I get to work with him, and have just started working with Mike. So they're here to talk about the solar panels that we talked about during our Saturday. They're more the experts than I was, so glad that you're joining us. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Well, good evening, school committee members, and thank you for having me. My name is Michael Cahill. I'm the Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Planner for the town. I know, a very long title. I work in the Department of Energy and Environment. I'm also here tonight with Adam Teft, who is working as the engineer on our project that we are proposing before you tonight. Tonight we're seeking your approval for the installation of solar carports at both Plymouth North and Plymouth South High School. So, as you might know, back in May, the Select Board voted to approve our Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. This is a plan that focuses on 62 priority actions here in town in 5 sectors: building, energy and infrastructure, natural systems, transportation, waste, and health, safety, and preparedness. It's an all-encompassing plan that's intended to be a roadmap for the town for the next 10 to 15 years on our goal towards climate resiliency, not only reducing risks for our residents, but capitalizing on the opportunities afforded with climate change. So, one of the actions, one of those 62 actions, action BEI 2.2A, is identifying opportunities for microgrids and energy storage for critical facilities. This project is to, we identified 5 critical infrastructure facilities in town, and we're looking to implement solar at those sites. And some of those sites will have a small microgrid, we're hoping in the future, but this is right now to provide renewables to those reducing energy bills. So these are the areas that we're looking at: Plymouth Public Library, DPW headquarters, Plymouth South High School. This will also include Plymouth South Middle School, Plymouth North High School, and the Cedarville landfill. And we're looking to do carports at 4 of those locations: rooftop solar at DPW, and a landfill solar project at the Cedarville landfill. So we can skip ahead at the other town projects. First, Plymouth South High School. This is an area that we already have a power purchase agreement in place, and I'll let Adam speak to that a little bit more, but you can see the solar panels there already on the roof of the building. What we're proposing here is carports behind the back of the school. Additionally, this is Plymouth South Middle School. Same thing, this is right by the loading dock to the left of the building. Once again, carports providing additional energy to the school. And this is Plymouth North High School, located directly behind the building next to the football field down there. And with that, I will turn it over to Adam to talk a little bit about the financials.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the introduction and giving some context for the projects. So the general thought here is the systems would be entirely third-party owned and operated, much like the current systems that you have in place now. So those were done under what's called power purchase agreement, whereby the installer is effectively the owner-operator of the site, and you simply buy power from the array at a set price for a period of 20 years. So not only does it help reduce your costs in the short term, but it helps lock in a fixed rate over a 20-year period, which from a budgetary standpoint can be pretty valuable too. So you have the sustainability impact of reducing your power purchases from Eversource. You have the financial benefit of reducing your costs, kind of in the here and now and in the future, and also the benefit of being able to park under a covered spot for those folks who would park in those areas. So it's really a trifecta of benefits. In terms of the savings associated with each, when the process that we ran was, we put out the RFP for the projects, hosted vendors at each site so they could see, sites for themselves. They could ask questions to myself and Mike and the facilities folks, really to make sure that everybody had a level playing field, same expectations, same data, and also knowing that, there are other folks that wanted the job as well. So we conducted that process a few months ago. We had an opportunity at Titan to review the results, ask questions of the vendors, make tweaks where necessary to make sure that all the, their assumptions were correct and in line with each other. And that's where, basically you see the table here. We articulate out the different sites, and just based on what came in, we're, offering a range for the sake of this presentation for South High School, Middle School, and the North High School. So when you see going through the annual kilowatt hour production, again, we had some variance in terms of, the sizes that were proposed. Folks had some different ideas about how to best maximize the site, but, we did, standardize across for the savings calculations, kind of how that would all flow. And then the solar dollars per kilowatt hour, that's the range relating back to the power purchase agreement. So the price that you would pay per kilowatt hour from the array over that set period of time, that's the number that you're looking at there. And then really your annual savings is just a comparison between what you're currently paying from Eversource and your third-party supplier, et cetera, relative to what the cost per kilowatt hour would be from the solar array. So obviously, we want to make the recommendation for the high end of the range. I think that's, when we were investigating which vendors had the best offer. We've made recommendations as to which those would be, but they do represent on the annual savings, the higher end of the range. So added together, the savings would be pretty significant for the district. Looks to be approximately $200,000 a year or so. And then the lifetime savings is just a calculation of those numbers extrapolated out over 20 years. And the systems would create power behind the meter. Basically, that's just another way of saying that the systems would offset your energy consumption with Eversource. We do have the ability to go front of the meter in some cases, but you really get the most value from the projects when you do it the other way. So that's what we would recommend. Was there another slide that you wanted me to speak to?
Sure. I should just note, too, in terms of format as well, what we would be looking at would be a 20-year lease of this area. So basically, after that 20 years, we could negotiate a further extension of this contract. We could negotiate to purchase the equipment, or at that point, we could revert the area, have it removed and revert to its original conditions. So this is a 20-year agreement in place, which is why the lifetime savings is generated over 20 years. And I understand that this slide is a little bit convoluted. I apologize for the ranges that we're giving, but unfortunately we have 3 bids out yet. We haven't selected the bid. After we get approval tonight, we will select the bid. So these are just a range of kind of what we're looking at, and like Adam said, we'll probably end up on the higher end of these ranges.
Okay, good.
And then I had mentioned the landfill as well, and just the 2 projects coming together. What we'll be looking at lifetime costs between all 5 of those projects is somewhere between $5.3 and $10.2 million in cost savings generated over that 20-year period.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then Adam, I'll let you talk to timeline here.
Sure. Yeah. So the major timeline hurdles that we would be looking to meet on our end have to do with the incentive program funding being renewed for 2025. So at the beginning of the year, Eversource and the other Massachusetts electric utilities will begin taking applications for these projects. The dollars associated with this are they're all first come, first serve. So the idea would be to, start moving that process along towards being able to have our application ready for the beginning of January. So, again, just a basic timeline here. The idea would try to, be to have the actual contracts with the vendors in execution ready format, by the end of this year. So we can be first in line to try to get those dollars. The vendor will have to do some work on their end concerning interconnection applications with the utility before we have a valid submission into the program. But I can say just from experience over the last 10 years working with these programs, especially when we're at the turn of kind of a new program where the incentives are being actually enhanced over what they were previously over the last few years, there definitely will be projects out there other than ours that are going to be vying for the same dollars. So I always have to walk the line between just being realistic with folks about how the timing and these things work, and obviously the town and schools need to work to their timeline that they feel comfortable with. But those are the steps that we'd be taking in the background, is to get the contracts ready for signature and also start preparing interconnection applications, which need to precede our application into the incentive program. So the idea would really, try to have all of this wrapped up by the end of January on our side. But again, making allowances for, perhaps unforeseen hurdles and things like that. But that would be our goal.
And one of the great things about this project, too, is I mentioned that there are 5 projects tied into this project that we're talking about, but those can all go out to bid individually. So if there's a single project that holds up for permitting for some reason, it won't hold up the whole group of projects in general. And then finally on construction, we have a wide range here from January to June. Working with the school department team, we elected that construction would be taking place during the summer months, so it wouldn't interfere with school business as well. So.
Correct. Yep, that was specified in the bid that construction would need to take into account the school calendar and activities at the school. So, obviously parking lots can be hectic. So, yeah, that would be our goal.
So to summarize, we'll be reducing our energy costs, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and providing covered parking for school students and for staff members.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Dr. Sorensen?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm going to tell you I'm asking you the question based on recollection. I don't have any documents in front of me. But part of the proposals with Plymouth South High School, when we built Plymouth South High School, was to have the solar covers for the parking lot. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty excited about that. And many of the teachers were as well, because it's a nice to come out to your car on a wet, snowy day and be under shade. However, it was NSTAR at the time. They blocked it. Mm-hmm. They prevented us from going ahead. And I don't know the reason. Do you know the reason?
Of all the projects that Plymouth has done over the last decade or so, that was actually one that I was not involved with. So I don't know specifically. That said, it was shared with me that there is a battery that's sitting there that needs to be connected to the facility, and there's a cost associated with that. And my goal would be to try to fold that cost into the solar project so it gets absorbed and that the district can finally take advantage of the battery, because we know what that cost is now. My guess would be it was probably interconnection cost related, just the project not being able to afford at the time that additional cost. I see it relatively frequently. And I think
that fact kind of begs the question. When you file the applications again for this project at Plymouth South High School and or Plymouth Middle School, what are the chances it's going to go through? We thought that we were going to go through when we built the school.
Sure. So part of what we did in the RFP process was to give everybody a specified number to hold for the interconnection costs that we would likely get back from Eversource. Again, these numbers are based on available data that Eversource gives us, and just having other experience interconnecting other projects in this area, just so we know kind of what folks need to hold. What I've seen in the past is that when people plan for these projects, they don't hold adequate funding for that interconnection, and then when that number comes back in, the project economics start to fall apart pretty quickly. So if there was a specific reason why Eversource said no under any circumstance, I would be surprised just because I've never seen that before. There's always a price to be paid for interconnection, just whatever it is. And, I'd like to think that, we're doing our best to plan for that. If for some reason there was an interconnection cost swing one way or another, the way that we control for that with the RFP is to say if there is an up or down swing, and it could work in the school's favor, it's not necessarily, the other direction, that those economics get folded on a dollar for dollar basis into the project, and then the school can make a choice if for some reason those costs are much higher, which is, I don't want to say it can't happen because it can, that the school would have a chance to take a fresh look at the economics of the project and not be locked into it if for some reason they swung too far outside what you would find acceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Michelle, can I ask?
Oh, Dr. Blaisdell.
Adam, could you talk a little bit about, obviously, we have solar fields already. Can you talk a little bit about how this works in with our current solar plan and how this helps us?
Yeah, sure. So, Town of Plymouth and the public schools have been very proactive in terms of participation with these programs that have come along. For the school side, there is a large solar field in the town of Plimpton and another in East Freetown. So those actually generate credits. You're not physically connected to the array. For those who maybe weren't on the board when those projects originated, they're called net metering credit deals. Basically, the array gets built. It can be in an adjacent town, within town, et cetera, but long story short, it doesn't need to be connected to your facility. As it produces power, the utility meters that and then converts the energy production into a dollar value that then gets set aside and used to pay down Eversource accounts. So it's like you're getting the benefits of solar, but you're doing it in more of like a virtual way. They call it net metering. So there are two large deals there that the town of Plymouth and Plymouth Public Schools have been party to. We've already taken time to analyze if, quote unquote, if there's space for the schools to absorb more energy based on those. And the answer to that is yes. I would want to make a couple adjustments as to where those allocations are, how they're tailored to which accounts, et cetera. But that, again, that's, if you're thinking about the different pieces of the puzzle here for sustainability for the town, you have a number of, high-quality offsite projects, and then you have a few that are on-site already generating power on the roof, and this would be kind of a complement to that strategy, if that's helpful.
You don't remember what year we're in of the current plan, do you?
Yeah, so those contracts date back to 2014.
Yeah.
They're 20-year agreements, so they're about halfway through. And for those who aren't familiar, basically the town and schools have been receiving credits that have a fixed price associated with them, and at times the credit's been as high as 25 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour that you've been paying 8 cents for. So you've effectively chopped, 2/3 of your costs down simply by getting those solar credits. So these programs historically have been very good for the district and helped manage those costs and reduce them pretty significantly. And of course, 10 years is a long time from now, but we're always keeping our eye on kind of the next thing and how we help you participate in the programs as they come along. Whatever's that can be incorporated into the portfolio here is really should be looked at. And eventually, in a few years, we may be having a conversation about additional offsite, as the others retire. So that's definitely in mind for us.
Anybody else have any additional questions? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Jackson.
So there's a lot of new technology with solar coming up too. So in 20 years, if we decide not to release or buy this equipment, what happens then?
So the vendor will take it all back at their cost.
Okay.
So that's like, of the three options that Mike discussed, the one I usually encourage folks to lean on as your primary would be the equipment comes off at their cost. And the other power purchase agreements at the schools are at the North High School and South High School rooftop, same language in there.
Okay.
At the end of the term, vendor takes them down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
And there's some fail-safe in there if the vendor goes out of business, somebody else is responsible?
Yeah, so that, and again, part of the RFP process for us is we're vetting the folks that respond is to make sure that, they have strong financials behind them. So there's certainly no shortage of solar companies out there, and just making sure that, they're well capitalized, that the funding sources that they get, either on the debt or the equity side, are strong and, leave everybody with a high degree of confidence that they will be around during the term. The question I get of course, is always, well, even like a company that might be well capitalized today, you know, what if fortunes turn, et cetera. All of these projects are backstopped by major lenders, usually like the Bank of America's, you know, U.S. Bank, Goldman Sachs. Those are kind of the three big entities that provide debt to these projects. And in the event the developer goes out of business, ceases to do business in the ordinary sense, the lenders have step-in rights. So, you know, it's a very, very high-value piece of equipment that, by all rights, is not terribly hard to maintain. So it's a fairly easy operation to keep going in the event that that were to happen. So that's the backstop at the end of the day. If the developer proper that, you know, whose name is on the PPA goes out of business, that's what would happen. Bank would step in, they'd contract with a third party to do O&M and invoicing and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Dr.
I have a
Sorensen?
question through you to the central office.
Yep.
Does our staff need to be trained? I mean, we already have solar panels, but this is going to
No,
really,
Oh, you mean,
Yeah, I mean,
project.
with the exception of maybe maintenance around it and snow removal, I don't see anything substantial in terms of, we're not gonna be
Correct.
touching the,
Yeah, there's no maintenance obligation to the equipment or the system itself. That's all incorporated into the power purchase agreement and covered by the vendor. You know, we've specified 14-foot minimum height clearance, again, just to make sure that there's plenty of ingress and egress out. So there's, you know, no issues with plowing or trucks, like garbage trucks and things like that might come through. So operationally, no, there's really nothing that needs to be done. If there's some you know, I always recommend when you build a system like this, obviously having public works folks involved in you know, getting off on the right foot, making sure if they have any questions or, you know, there's things that they want to address that the vendor's made available for that. That's, you know, pretty standard process for us. So that's usually the extent of it.
thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? No, seeing none, this is an action item. Do I have a motion to, I'm trying to accept the presentation and, right? Okay, I thought you were looking at me too.
Nope.
I have a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
I just lost it. I move to accept the RFP as presented by the town, Climate Resiliency and Sustainability.
Perfect. Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Morgan, thank you. Any questions on the motion? If no one has questions, we should be able to vote. Perfect. It looks like we have 5 voting in favor and one absent and 1 abstaining. So thank you so much. We're really excited. I think this is a great opportunity for us to expand our solar, or the town and the schools to expand our solar portfolio.
Yeah,
So thank you for your
everybody.
work.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
All right, now we have Plymouth South High School School Improvement Plan. Mrs. Fry.
This is fine. Excuse me.
Lose my voice here.
Right. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you for having me here tonight on behalf of Plymouth South. We're in the second year of our 3-year cycle with the school improvement plan, so the plan itself hasn't really changed, obviously, but just the things, I'm here to update you on the things that have been going on for the past year. So first, I'd like to, as I look at some of the school committee members, thank the council. The names are listed at the back, and I always say one of the best parts of the high school is we have students on our committee, so they always really give a good lens into all the different pieces that go on. So our 24 through 27, I can't believe we're talking that long, 3-year mid-cycle update. We had 3 main goals, and I'll go over each one individually, but what you heard Lily talk about, our self-study was just last week. It was very successful. It's a pretty big deal, so I'll get into some details from that. We've been working very hard on our digital portfolio, for our vision of a graduate, and we've had a lot of different strides, and we've started the portfolios, and some of you may have seen some at the CCTE showcase. The tech program had started them. We blended them together. We're all about the vision of the graduate, which you'll hear me say the 5 pillars a few times, and you may have seen those. And the neat part of that you're going to hear is that we're involving the students with choice of assignments, so it's not just saying put this in a portfolio. The teachers are giving options, and then the students are going to decide what they align to. And the final goal is about our EL program. program, which we're in the second year of. Prior to last year, students who are EL learners would go to Plymouth North. So as a former EL and Spanish teacher, I'm very excited about this, even though I can't speak Spanish anymore. But we have really made an intentional work to make sure that students who want to get into the CCDE programs and working with Mr. Duffy and the middle schools, we're very intentional about that. So that also, we have we embed our DEI goals into that goal as well. So that's where we're at. For goal 1, I'd implore you, Libby, my personal clicker over here. What happens with the self-study is it's hard to believe. In 2004 was our accreditation visit, the year before I actually came to Plymouth, and we had a pretty difficult accreditation report. We were in a very, very tough place. Then it's 10 years later, and it's 2014, and we had a tremendous report, and we were fortunate that we had the building on the horizon because we were in a pretty bad state with the facility. We were about to lose our accreditation for our facility status. So we were so fortunate to have the Plymouth community support the beautiful Plymouth South High School. And really, it's not just about the building, it's about the opportunities that we provide our students. And now, fast forward to 2024, we were able to showcase the building, the opportunities, the programs from biomed to CCTE. We were able to cover so many different areas in the academic program and how much it's risen, because back in 2004, as some of you remember, we separated tech studies and academic learners. There were Week About and Michelle, a graduate, and things like that. And over the last 20 years, we've been able to blend it, and then standards rise for all. So the documents on this slide, there are 3. The first one Libby has up is a look back. I'm obviously not going to read it to you, but it's a pretty nice summary of all the work that's been done by so many people that are still employed, and some have left. But it just kind of summarizes where we've come since 2014. And at the end, it captures kind of the priorities for the future, because we're far from perfect. We still have needs, and it highlights what those needs are. And you'll see it stems from mental health needs, really ensuring that we're able to fund our schools appropriately, and they're so proud of everything that's been done. So that document's an interesting read. The second one is called the Priorities Areas for Growth. And we had to pick as a staff what our main priorities were. So you'll see different numbers. That's kind of NEASC language, but those goals are what we're looking for in the next 2 to 10 years at Plymouth South. So that was an important document. And the final click, the strengths and areas of growth, this, if you're bored on the weekend and want to read some good NEASC book, it's all in here. We put together over the last year a self-study document, which is very extensive, and it covers the key components: learning culture, student learning. There's 5 of these. And in each one, what comes out of the study, which I love, is that it kind of tells a story, and it says, this is what's going great, and this is what we'd love to see. So you'll see things in there like, we'd love more common planning time, we'd like more mental health supports, we'd like, our curriculum in one location, in one consistent document. And you work with, the best part about NEASC is I like it personally better than some of the other organizations, because it's peers evaluating your school. So it's working professionals in other schools in our community. And it was funny, I was at a youth sporting event this weekend, and I had a mom approach me that one of the team members worked in her district and said, I want to go work in Plymouth. So it was kind of exciting. So I'm like, great, maybe we'll be hiring. But those 3 links just have a lot of information in there. And the visiting team was very excited. They really raved about our opportunities academically and in the tech studies program, and the opportunities our students have, opportunities for student travel, to curriculum, to our AP program they raved about, really because it's AP for all. There's no prerequisites. They love the blending of the tech and the academic, the growth over the last 10 to 20 years, and the inclusive culture at Plymouth South. So we were very excited, and I do have to tell this one story that you see our pillars are the mindful learners, effective communicators. We have banners in the lobby. We're all excited about the pillars. And when I met with the students, we had about 60 students involved as tour guides in focus groups, and they meet without the staff. They meet with the team. And one individual, Serenity, she's in our Stride program, and she was one of the stars at the Garden last year. And I said to the gym, I met with the kids, you're going to have questions, dress nice, things of that nature, be here on time. And I said, do you all know what these posters mean? Because that's the key to it all. We want these pillars to be what our students accomplish before they graduate. And Serenity, if I had a video camera, she said, Mrs. Fry, and she rattled off what we believe in, that you really want us to graduate and be communicators, inclusive. It was magical. It was like the best, the last 6 weeks, it was the best day. But it truly showed us that the kids get it, and they help design these as well. So everything we do, we go back to those 5 pillars at Plymouth South. 2 other pieces that we, in the past year, since our last report, we have a great survey that you do during this study. Students, families, and staff are surveyed, and the data from that survey aligned with the strength and needs, which align with what the report will essentially say. So it's kind of nice to see it all coming together in that way. And then what'll happen is in the next couple weeks, I'll get a draft of the report just to edit and proof with them. If there's any clerical errors, it'll go back to the group. Then it'll become public to the community and to all of you. So we're excited with how it went. It was phenomenal the whole time, and they noticed things that we know we're struggling with as well. So in the mental health meeting, we had a lot of our counselors, and we really were talking about a lot of the needs, and sadly, our adjustment counselor was tied up in a meeting with a student who was in a really bad crisis. So we were able to get that student the supports, but she wasn't even able to go to the meeting because I said, Joya, you need to stay with the student here. So, we didn't try to do, obviously, but they see how paramount the needs are that we're seeing with our kids. These are just the documents of kind of the definitions that we've developed as a school community of what Plymouth South believes these pillars are and what represent. And, the Serenity story, she was a tour guide with one of the initial groups, and it was unbelievable. I'm like, I should have had a video camera there. So this generation videotapes everything. I do not videotape everything. So. We also, you heard Lily share, got some great news about a week before this that we were, I always say our AP focus is not about the T-shirts. We've been having student design T-shirts for, I think, 14 years now. And it's really about exposing students that they can do it all. They can be a hairdresser, take a AP course, they can, do whatever they want. And we try to make those opportunities and avenues come alive for them because so many kids are going to college and having reduced financial rates because of it. And we were just told we were a silver status. We'd been bronze in the past, so we just got that notification. And this slide really explains what that is. So it's not about a silver medal. The 52% silver status is, it shows really that students take at least 1 AP class. And then the gold status is students who take 3 or more, and they're entitled to get college credit for that. And the final is the students that I could never be, where they take 5 or more AP classes, which is a little bananas. But, out of 8 total classes. So, but we're excited because the kids come back and tell us it's helped them stay focused, whether it's at work, in college, because it really is a pretty scripted piece. And the magic behind it is the teachers who spend hours and hours, really preparing the students and take such pride in it as well. And that was a big piece of NEAS because of the equity in learning. And these are the 5 standards, which really make sense. And they've changed a lot over the years. The last, for example, when North had their visit in, I think, 2019, and I was working over here, it was a different standard. They've now changed it again, which I like better. Where they have these 5 cogs, and it's all based on student learning. So if you see, it's student learning is the paramount piece, and then all the supports that you need to have in place in order to make that work. And it really does make sense. So, and again, it's peer review, people from other districts, and we learn from those districts when they come here. So that's kind of where we're at, but this goal will continue for the next couple of years because we'll have to respond to all the different pieces that come in from the report. So. The second goal is our digital portfolio, and if you look down to the draft, it's going to work this year. Our portfolio draft. This is what it just kind of looks like, and it's our grade 9 teachers are. Well, Libby, I'm driving her crazy with the links. The vision of a graduate, we began with the class of 2027, and there he is, Dr. Campbell. I was all excited last year. I kept his picture.
Much younger.
And if you look at the top, there are the pillars, mindful learner, communicator, and what the students will do is embed their work in there. So in their English class in grade 9, there may be 4 assignments they can choose from, and they decide, are these my inclusive learner, communicators, and we want them to go across all the content areas. So they're working on it. Mrs. Debonese in the library is one of our key people helping us design this and work with the kids. They go into advisories to design them, and then the teachers take it from there and working with the students. So we're still in the early stages, but they're so electronically savvy, the kids, they're way beyond their principal, obviously. So, but that's and they will design it their own. So it won't just be a formalized picture. Sorry, Chris. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful picture, but.
the public know.
And so the key is the options and the student voice are the big piece behind that. So we can move off Dr. Campbell if we'd like. But it's funny, when you hire new teachers, they come to you with these portfolios, with their, to show you about what they're doing. The colleges are doing it a lot. So it's something that it's very, very similar. Goal 3 is about our EL program. Our numbers have grown, and it's amazing how we've discovered how many students in our school speak English, but their parents do not. So as of not having the EL program before, we're working, Mr. Carpenito is actually coming over next week to work with staff, and we're seeing that people are coming in. We had a student who's a newcomer register last week, doesn't speak a word of English, but the magic is our Connections Club, which is led by Miss Diaz, who's a native Portuguese speaker and is just like an angel on earth. And she every Friday, we have a group of our EL learners during K-Block, but also our students who speak English, but Portuguese is their first language, but they're fluent in English, come and say, hey, go to the football game. Hey, come, make sure you come to homecoming. So that bridge has happened. And it's funny, our student, one of our students, our tour guides is Pedro, who was our first student who came over to access the automotive program. And he's had incredible success, and he had been struggling with his attendance, and now the buy-in to the automotive program is really what has kept him there. So Mr. Duffy, I know, brought him over to the 8th grade recruitment events that we have at the middle school. So there's a lot of people. The middle school staff has been great. We've had visits for our EL students, so we're really just trying to make sure that's a paramount. And 2 other, kind of on the diversity front, Blue Mantis is an opportunity, that's the company, that we're going to be having a Digital Divas Technology Boot Camp with North and South students at Plymouth South on the 13th, facilitated through Dr. Rogers. And it's really girls in the trades and the electronics and electrical and technology. And we're really excited about it. So that's coming up on November 13th. So on a DEI effort there. And the Northeastern University Partnership is something, I just had a Zoom on last week. We're in the early stages, but Mr. Fry and I had to go with Mr. Domingos and Mr. Parslin to an event through the MIA. And sometimes those aren't great, but this was outstanding. We had to go, it was in May, and the Northeastern, if you click on that, Libby, they have a whole group on anti-bias and really things in sports, so taking the hate out of high school sports. And we had these 2 trainers who were unbelievable, so we're working to bring them in to work with our captains who are sophomores and juniors. Our seniors will kind of be ready to leave at this time in the winter, because this situation's happening all around, and it happens in an instant, and we want to try to be as proactive as possible with our leaders and trying to train the trainer. And this, the Center for Study of Sport and Society, it's really, really interesting to see what they're doing, and they're making some really good strides. And we went to a training, and it was outstanding. It really got us thinking in this lens. And you just want to try to be as proactive as possible in these different times when kids are in stands and in gyms and at games. It's something that you just want to make sure they're using the right words, and, be proactive, not reactive, is always my philosophy. So that's another DEI piece. And then we have a new flag display. I'm very into visuals, as a lot of you know, that we set a poll out to our students that we're actually up to 16 flags now, I believe, of countries of origin. So if you come look on the 3rd floor of Plymouth South, Ms. Barrett told me the middle school kids are enjoying looking at all the flags.
It's great from the other side.
It's really great. So this is what it's all about. And it's country of origin is our big push. We've had students say, I lived in another country. I'm like, nope, you can't. Will Kenny wanted a few flags, he told me. So I said, no, Will, sorry. But so know that this is something that we hope will grow. And it's just another visual. And a lot of the kids have commented on it. So it's one of the pieces we put into place. And this is just, we've done so much work, and it's continuing. We actually have a trip next week to the elementaries with our Strive program, and our current Strive kids going down to the elementary levels, and the space, the Breathe space that was done by our artists, where students decompress, and just the partnerships where we've created this one model, and then the sensitive areas in the lower grades. And that's a real credit to the Strive staff, people like Allison Shaver, Stephanie Fleming. They're just unbelievable, and it's growing. It's not just stopping here. Mm-hmm. And then when you do a 3-year plan, you put goals in a year and a half ago, and then there's other goals that we're working on too. So I always include things that, this is our yellow tulip garden that we modeled after PCIS, that artificial intelligence is something that we talk about a lot, and I have no idea what to do yet, but there was a group this summer that worked, and a few of my staff members were on it too, through Stacy, and we're trying to be, our English department is really, they're phenomenal, and they're really trying to educate the kids on why you shouldn't just use artificial intelligence, not the get in trouble mentality. It's more the how do we make them realize that this is their world. I mean, it is just so beyond the things we're seeing. And not in that students are breaking rules with artificial intelligence, it's at their fingertips, and it's pretty tricky. So how to educate them about what real citing of sources and things of that nature, and how to use artificial intelligence to benefit you, because it can be a real benefit. But I'm definitely not the lead on that, but we are trying. We really are struggling with substance use and mental health a great deal, as in everywhere. And it's something that our staff is working so hard, but we're still really seeing students who we get appropriate supports, but when their reentry is what we really want to get better at, because you don't say, okay, go back to pre-calculus now after you've been in mental health placement. And then attendance. We've been meeting with Mr. Janulowicz. I don't know if you can see this slide, but this is something we've created with his help, that we're now having intentional interventions with our adjustment counselor, guidance counselor, and grade 9 vice principal. And we're having intentional meetings and kind of making a contract with the students about these are some things we're going to do. And little things that sometimes people don't realize, it's that mom is working and they miss the bus, and how do you get to school? Got to get little brother and sister on the bus, and their bus doesn't come till 8:40. So there's some words on there that share, these are some of the things that what supports can we put into place for you as well. So it's an ongoing conversation, and it's obviously in conjunction with Dr. Campbell's Be Present theme, but it's something that we deal with, I think, every day. But and I really implore families to reach out, that don't be scared of asking. I have a girl, her twin sister she graduated early, and she's going to her military graduation next week. I'm like, that can be excused. That's okay. We have a student, he is in culinary, and he qualified for the Jack Daniel's barbecue bake-off or
That's right.
cook-off. He came in 8th in chicken, and Nick wrote me a long letter, and I said, yeah, we can give you a day. So it's the back and forth, it's not like this, we have to obviously follow the rules, but we have communications. When crises go on at home at night, something happens, we work with people. So it's really, we're gonna really be pushing the communication. So that's, and these are the people who've been on our committee for the past few years. We have a next meeting next month, and that is Plymouth South. And I will say the key to it all is the people back at that school, the kids and the staff and the school community, because the parents were so influential. It was nice to see on the NEAS visit that we've seen years of families of kids, and it was kind of fun to watch, Mrs. McGilvery talk about her final one as a senior, is 12. Wow. I can't believe it. So stuff like that. But we're kind of in the mid-cycle, but we're working really hard. I don't know if people had questions.
Anyone have any questions? No? Thank you so much. That was sorry, Dr. Sorensen.
I hate to bring us back to AI, but
I know.
I have to ask you the question, because I know less than you, okay?
What'd you say?
I know less than you
I don't
about
know.
AI.
Yeah,
But it worries me.
yes.
It worries me because it's so available.
Yep.
So when is it appropriate and when isn't it appropriate?
Right. I think the teachers have tried to say to the kids, if it's going to better you to do this project, do some research and look at it. There's simple things, like we had a training, and the culinary teachers, if you have 10 things in your fridge, you put it into AI, it gives you a recipe. And so they talked about that. It was funny with the kids. I think it's if it can be used as a support, not to just do an assignment.
Yeah.
If you have a paper on the Great Gatsby, don't just put in what are the common themes of the Great Gatsby and have it write it for you. And it was funny, you'll find this interesting, Jim, the last year's scholarship committee, so we added the essay a number of years ago. And Mr. Walker and Mrs. Gilligan from South and 2 teachers from North read all the essays together. And they have a day, and they came to us and said, they do it at South, and they came, and there's common words that come up, beacon and underlying and beneath, like they're English teachers, they're trained at this, but don't use it to write your essay. So one student wrote an essay, it's about an influential person in their life. They didn't even name a person, so they knew that was AI. So it's something, don't do it to get the quick way out.
Those are the easy questions. When should
Yeah.
they use it?
I think they should when they want to learn something about a topic, and if they're giving a presentation and they want to put something in about how do I present on a very complex topic, in science class. Maybe it can give you some talking points that say, okay, these would be key areas you should focus on in your oral presentation,
Yeah.
not in your written paper that's a can look like a plagiarized work. And I know I meet with the social principals, I go to a meeting monthly, and we learn from each other, and there's been some press recently, and I think we high school principals get a little consumed in like policies and rules, and I think we need to say, you have to go to college, and they'll expel you from college if these things happen. And back to the pillars, we want to provide you with the tools to succeed at the next level and know that this can get you in a messy situation. But I think, and I'm not just speaking about Plymouth, we're all kind of grasping at straws because it's not an easy, did you plagiarize from this document? Because we don't know where it comes from. So, Dr. Campbell shared with me, I don't want to overstep, but a podcast that can be done. Mrs. Boucher shared with him. It's unbelievable, like a voice
Wild.
talking about,
Yeah, I'm sure
things.
there was
So I think it can be a tool, but it's scary. I mean, it is really scary. I mean, there have been really negative things done where people have imitated voices, and, it's a scary time. I do know some schools are going to only completing work in class. And I see that side. I don't love it because I think in life you have work outside of class, but I really don't even know. It's a lot, so.
If I may. Oh.
Mrs. Jackson?
When it comes to AI, I feel like what you're talking about is probably the best option because it is going to be a tool that they're going to use in real life. And so you can't exclude it from their education because it's something they need to be educated on, but why use it as, like, write your paper, do your presentation, did I miss anything?
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Not
Here's the prompt, what do
Exactly.
I do? And I think it's almost like cell phones. I didn't bring up the cell phones because we've actually, third year in, we're succeeding. Kids put them away. It's, it's not a fight. It's not a problem. And philosophically, I don't believe in banning them because they have to learn to function with a cell phone.
Yeah.
Do they need to be on Snapchat 24 hours a day? No. But they are truly, if you go around South High School, they come into class, they check their notifications, they put it away in the pockets. They learn, they get it back, they write their homework down on their phone. They have it at passing time. The next class, same thing. So the breakdown is only when there's a substitute or something like that. So we've they know they have to function with it. It's way easier than AI, obviously, because their generation is going to, it's here.
Yes.
Like it's not going anywhere, So I don't know if I answered the question, but I think how you can use it as a tool to succeed, not to get away with someone else doing your work. That's kind of like crass to say, but it's that when a student has a paper due tomorrow and it's 11 o'clock at night, we've all been, it's like, hey, put this into AI and just submit it. Some schools
plays
just
into the hands of the procrastinator really well.
bingo.
Yes,
and
it does.
It's funny having the schools saying, okay, we do most things in Google, what these kids submit, but they can write it in Word and copy and paste it into Google, and you won't know they've edited it through AI. So there's just so many ways around all the stuff. So I'm going to retire before there's real decisions.
There- Oh, go ahead, Dr. Campbell.
Say, and Dr. Rogers, with high school and middle school administration and academic coordinators has had a working group trying to look at this, and it's some of the training they've brought in. It's really, as Mrs. Fry said, there is no escaping this. We have to come to the reality. There is no escaping AI in education. It exists. We've been using it in other ways, but now it's something that we have to come up with an agreed upon solution on how it can be a thought partner, not your personal assistant to do your work for you, right? And getting kids to understand and where are those ties in the classroom and education, so that we can get kids to understand that you still need to be a critical thinker, problem solver, but how can you use it to help you pose questions that you may want to ponder, and to your point, Ms. Jackson, like that side of intelligence to help them think about what they're trying to do, right?
And I think to the be present vision, there's nothing more valuable than being at school, like attending school. And so the more maybe we can ensure it's at school. We've had so many parents since COVID say, hey, if I go on vacation for 3 weeks, they can just do it remotely. It's not the same. So I think that push can help maybe with the AI thing, because if they're present in school and learning, and that's a huge component of it. And that's the number one piece of any type of student success, coming to school before anything else. So
And knowing how to use it properly. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
huge. I mean,
It's a
I mean,
lot.
I've used it sometimes just to
Yeah.
clarify my own.
Thinking.
Yeah, like I'll write a couple sentences and I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to say. Like it is, but I can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's more convoluted than I needed to say, and then it just pops out, and you're like, that's exactly what was in my brain. Thank you so much, AI. But you can also do to like create like graphics. So like you have to know how to use it because what you can do and what you can do in Canva now with AI generator, like it's amazing.
But it's not a new problem, because we
no.
had Cliff Notes and we had
Right,
other
right.
opportunities
Monarch Notes, yeah.
to buy work.
Absolutely.
Now it's at your fingertips
Right.
and so available. It's-
Absolutely. Yep. It's a lot. It's a lot. So it's there, but
Any other questions?
no, it's not a goal. You notice I'm not going to be. It's an
You want
honor.
to solve the
It's
world's
Dr.
problems?
Rogers' goal. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you all, and
appreciate
thank you all
it.
for your
Thank
support.
you.
The NEAS group was they know how much the school committee supports the schools, so that was a big component. So it went really well. It was great.
Thank you.
All right.
Right, our next thing we have is we have our CCTE with Mr. Duffy.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to thank, again, your continued support on behalf of the members of the College Career and Technical Education faculty, the students and the families. The programs that we're able to offer here are simply amazing, and the opportunities that our students get is just top shelf. I have a few highlights for you from when I was with you probably about 7 months ago. A couple of updates, and at that point in time, I talked to you a little bit about some grants that we were exploring, some grants that we were waiting to hear on, and we have some good news. So I'll start with some highlights. We have about 75 students again in our co-op that are out on co-op for this school year. And one of the strengths and the hallmarks of our programming is cooperative education, to be able to send students out and get that work experience on the job. With us this evening is Miss Maureen Kelleher. She's our cooperative education coordinator, and she has done a tremendous amount of work over the years to build relationships with local businesses and industry, South Shore, on the Cape, even in the Boston, and we're very fortunate for those relationships because we're able to place students and get that hands-on work experience. We have some new employers that are working with us this year, and you can see them on the slide. But again, it's just incredible that our local businesses and industry experts are willing to take our students on and help train them, help their workforce development. Since this is a public meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to advertise again like I did last year. And if there are businesses out there and local businesses that can use our students to help train them and provide them that opportunity, please contact us and reach out to us. Couple of highlights from Skills USA and DECA. This is highlights of the national competitions, respectively, for both competitions. Skills USA, we had several students place silver and gold medalists, including Miss Katrin Ellis, who was a national voting delegate and made it to Atlanta. And we expect big things out of Katrin over the next few years as she looks to become a state officer. In DECA, we had a little over 20 students that qualified and made it to Anaheim for the international conference. So it's a sign of just two healthy programs for our tech students and how we're doing. And these are national, right? These are the national conferences. The number of students that made it to states and qualified, and at regionals and at districts. I left off the slide, but numerous in terms of how well our students are doing. I'll give you a couple of grant updates. Last year, I talked to you about a pending grant, and you probably have seen the news, but we were thrilled to find that through the Massachusetts Skills Capital Grant Program that we were able to receive total funding to upgrade our television production studio at Plymouth South High School. And it's huge. That equipment came over from the old school, which probably is 10 to 15 years of age. From industry standards starting to see greener pastures, if you will. That project is just about complete. I know that And one of the major things that we'll be able to do is to put up a prefabricated metal building on an existing 50-foot by 50-foot slab that's outside of our tech wing. That slab was part of the original construction of the school, and we'll be able to complete that project. And that clear span building will allow us to bring our HVAC, our electrical, our plumbing, and our carpentry students together under one roof and work on projects together with a focus on clean energy skills. It's an equity grant, and as Mrs. Fry was speaking about earlier, our work at Plymouth South High School and working with our different populations and making sure that they have access to all of our programs. In terms of both of those grants, the Mass Skills Capital Grant and the Mass Clean Energy, I'm really confident that we were awarded those grants because of the work that Plymouth Public Schools has been doing, that rich tradition, the history that's here in terms of career and technical education, and the recognition through those grant awardees, if you will, of the work that's been going on here and the vision and the mission of the Plymouth Public Schools to carry that on. It's a compliment, I think, to the work that you've done here as a school committee, the administration, and in the past, and moving forward and looking forward to the work that we can do in the coming years. There's a couple of other grants that I spoke to you about last year that we're still looking at, and we have one that is pending. We're going to go back at the Mass Life Sciences grant, which is really going to target some work in CAD at Plymouth South High School, in our engineering program at Plymouth North High School, in mechatronics and some advanced manufacturing technology skills. We know that there's a need in the South Shore and in Massachusetts. It's been identified through Mass Hire, and we know that we can integrate those advanced manufacturing tech skills into existing programs that we have here in Plymouth Public Schools and expand and grow and evolve. Without having to add a program, we can take a lot of those skills and build them into what we are currently doing. We have a pending grant, another Massachusetts Skills Capital grant for medical assisting and health assisting. So medical assisting at Plymouth South High School and health assisting, allied health at Plymouth North High School. It's a big grant. We have our fingers crossed, knock on wood. We hope to get good news this school year on that grant. And again, it's an equipment and professional development grant. And hopefully that we hear good news in the next 6 to 8 months on that particular grant. It's pretty much it that I have in terms of highlights for you this evening. When I'm with you again next year, I'll go back to the other cycle where I presented highlights on certifications, industry-recognized credentials that our students have earned, the workforce development, and I'll update you, obviously, on the remaining grants that we're waiting on, including the work on the clean energy grant and the skills and the equipment and the building as we hit those milestones.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mrs. Jackson?
So 2 things. I just wanted to say that I'm very excited about everything that you're doing right now. I feel like the things that you've done since you've been hired have really propelled the program forward, and I'm just so excited about everything you're doing. I wonder if you could speak just for a moment. I know a big question when it comes to acceptance in the tech program has been the guidelines, and I know you've been doing some work also on, alternative pathways, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit about how you're trying to level the playing field a little bit with that.
Yeah, so we're trying to really trying to look at through our admissions policies how we can ensure that we have the opportunities provided for all of our students and families. I'll give you a couple of examples. The principal at Harbor, Mr. Damaris, has reached out to me to see about building those connections between students that he's working with at our alternative high school and how we can build a bridge, if you will, and close that gap for students that are interested in the trades but aren't at South High School, are not at North High School. And so that's a work in progress. Another option that we're exploring, I was talking with Adam Blaisdell about this earlier this year, and I'll be at a conference this Thursday, I think it is the 24th, to learn a little bit more about it, is after dark programming, which there are a lot of grants that are currently exist. I want to say there's still upwards of $40 million right now at the state level for after dark programming. So it's something that we need to learn more about to see if we can bring to Plymouth Public Schools as well, because the after dark program can hit students that they could be a senior in high school, but they could actually participate in that after-dark programming as a senior in high school. In addition, obviously, students that are people that are outside of high school that have graduated.
Right.
But we could hit our seniors that are looking to get into a trade as well. So trying to gather more information and learn more about those grant possibilities to see if we could bring that programming here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, thank you for that great presentation. I really appreciate it. And Mrs. Jackson took the words right out of my mouth. I think we're really excited about all the work that you're doing and the excitement that you bring to this. So thank you for that. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
And now we have our field trips. I'm assuming you're going to stay up here and
With me this evening, Miss Cassandra Hunnell and Miss Maria Baker. They are instructors, but also Skills USA advisors.
So basically what we're looking to do is our annual Fall State Leadership Conference and our State Leadership Conference and our National Leadership Conference. Skills USA is working to work with all of our tech students. We do enroll all of our tech students in the Skills USA program. And we're working to bridge that gap and add the leadership and soft skills that we're really lacking in today's workforce. So Skills USA is having their Fall State Leadership Conference, which is all community service-based, interconnected projects. They're going to work with people from other schools to work on different projects together to increase communication and teamwork and things like that. And then state and national conference is more based on that hands-on competition aspect of learning hands-on skills, communication skills, leadership skills, et cetera.
To add anything to that, Fall State Leadership Conference really does embody what we want our students to look like throughout the 5 pillars of the vision of the graduate. It shows us what our students can do and what they're capable of. It lets them really showcase those soft skills and build them in a place that's safe for them and where they can learn from students from across the state, all the way from Western Mass when they've traveled 9 hours to get to this conference. We only traveled about an hour. It's really amazing to see what they can do when they interact with each other and how much they grow over the course of 2 days. Same thing with the state leadership and national leadership and skills conferences. They come out of those conferences completely changed students. I speak from experience. I was very heavily involved in Skills USA, and it changed my life, and that's why I'm back. And if it didn't, I wouldn't be back. So I think it's the best thing that we could offer to our students.
And they would be accompanied by both of us at all 3 of those conferences.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Can we do them all? Dr. Campbell.
So to
This
that
is
point,
skills.
so you'll notice that all 9 of these opportunities, which are a rich part of our Skills USA and DECA
Yeah.
programs, were put in there individually in case you had a question and wanted to pull one out.
Okay.
So I didn't want to make an assumption
Okay.
that but if you want to if it's the pleasure of the committee to take a vote on
Skills.
all of them,
DECA, yep.
we can make sure the electronic school board goes through and adjusts that accordingly.
Okay.
So if you had a motion and a second for just
All
the
skills,
first one,
national,
we'll
and blah, blah, blah.
adjust it accordingly for all of those, unless you have a question about any of the attachments.
Okay, Dr. Sorensen, I think
make
you're-
a motion if you're
okay.
ready.
Perfect, yes, I am if no one, yep, okay.
Yes?
Go right ahead.
I will move the school committee approve the field trip request for both DECA, Skills USA, and Skills USA National.
Do we have to say out of state and,
I'm sorry?
do we have to say out of state? Does that matter?
They're
Okay.
all, yeah.
Yes,
no,
of
I
course
think
they are. I just
for
didn't
all
know if
the
it needed to be in the
in-town
motion.
overnight trips
yeah.
that have been provided.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Any questions on the motion? Yes.
This is both for
Mr.
DECA and for Skills USA combined?
Yes.
Yes, so it would be for DECA District, it would be for DECA State,
Yep.
it would be for DECA Internationals, again, planning for the future, DECA
Yep.
District competitions for South, states, internationals, Skills USA, state conference,
Yep.
Skills USA for both schools,
For both, so North for both.
Skills USA Nationals, and, yes. 8.1 through 8.9.
Work.
That
Okay.
was my motion.
Yes, perfect. Anybody have any additional questions? All right, if no one has any questions, we should be able to vote.
Yes.
Maybe.
There we go.
Perfect. Have so much fun and thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you.
Motion passes. All right. All right, now we are at policy adoption, MASC policy, section KDCB. Dr. Rogers or Dr. Campbell?
This is Dr. Campbell's policy.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Taking ownership.
So we discussed this, thank you, everyone. We discussed this at the Saturday meeting, but would like to bring this to your attention for a consideration for an amendment to our current, most recent KDCB policy regarding social media. So one thing that we had a lot of conversations about was the use of comments, and as we talked about at our Saturday retreat, the policy is only as good as how we can manage that, right? So rather than restricting all comments on our social media accounts, which at the district level, for a few accounts that we have, that would be manageable. But with the enormous amount of accounts that we have at the schools and whatnot, it would be very difficult to do that with fidelity. So that's a concern. And we've also had some discussion with our communications department regarding some of those concerns. So trying to find middle ground regarding this policy, we came up with an attachment that we would include in that policy at the end, which reads public engagement through social media. Just so for the public, we value the engagement of our community and recognize the importance of dialogue to foster communication. Our social media pages will allow public comments. However, please keep in mind, please keep the following in mind. 1, comments reflect the opinions of the individual users and do not necessarily represent the views or policies of the school district. 2, while we aim to foster a respectful exchange of ideas, we do not actively monitor all comments. We do, but we can't guarantee that at all times. For specific questions, concerns, or feedback regarding school operations, we encourage you to contact the relevant department directly. This ensures that your questions and/or concerns are addressed accurately and promptly. We talked about administratively in the event that we were not to include comments on which came from the committee as a recommendation to be very explicit with that in that post to let people know where to go to get answers so that people understand how it's connected to the policy.
Anybody have any questions? I know we talked about this at our Saturday meeting, so if nobody has any questions as an action item. Anybody have any? Yes, Mrs. Jackson.
I move that we accept MASC policy section KDCB.
Perfect. And do we have a second? Oh, thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second. Do you have any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, we should be able to vote. I don't know why I look up there like it's gonna be different than it's on my screen. And that passes unanimously.
So
Thank you.
related to policies, and we'll be
Yes.
publicizing this, so our MASC is, the policy, Plymouth Public Schools Policy Manual is now up online, MASC, so it's interactive and searchable now. And they actually took our banner, this year's theme banner, and put it at the top, which is really nice. So that's up there. So with this revision, we will, through our office, make sure that they get that, and they will update that accordingly. So this is how that will work. And our connections on electronic school board will go to MASC, so they can go directly to the interactive policy manual that's there.
Perfect. Awesome. It's exciting.
It is.
Yeah, it's great.
It's been a long process, so thank you all. You've been really deeply involved in that, so thank you for doing that. All right, our next thing we have is our 2024 MASC resolutions, and this is when we typically go through in our voting delegate. It's Mr. Shaw, right, this year? Okay, and you're registered, we've got you all set?
I think so.
Okay, just want to make sure. And anybody else who's going to be going, just make sure that we check make sure with Tricia that we're all registered. Okay, sorry, Dr. Campbell.
So I don't know, you may have noticed that I got a little out of hand, I think, this year with my commentary. So you have the resolutions in there, which are, I believe, 9 pages, and my recommendations are 10.
I was going to say, I think longer.
So I'm not gonna go through that for you, but what I did this year is I took the resolutions and kind of summarized them so that the general public wouldn't have to read this. Just looked at like benefits and challenges with that, and then made some recommendations underneath. So I don't know how you'd like me to approach that, Ms. Badger, in terms of the resolutions. I could just go to like summarizing that, or if you want to
Yeah.
summarize them,
Yeah, I mean, I think if we just start with one and we move down, because we need an individual vote on each of them.
Correct.
So yeah, if we do it that way, and that way,
I don't know if it's.
Ms. Shaw knows that our, just for you and who is it? Are you, Mr. Jackson, are you our alternate? I can't remember who we are alternate. Yeah. So what will happen is.
Sorry to cut you off, and I noticed that it's not set up but we can make note of that and make sure that that's in the minutes.
Perfect.
And as long as Ms. Shaw has that too.
Okay.
Yep.
We could kind of keep track and do one long motion, like yes to 1, 2. We
Yeah,
could do
that's one
something
way to
like
do it.
that,
Yep.
as long as it is simple. In that way, if it gets a little bit more complicated, then we can break it out. But what will happen is the first round of votes, you'll vote how the committee votes, and then the second round, we just kind of, if there are second rounds of votes, because if there's amendments or anything else like that on the floor, what will happen is you use your best judgment based on our discussion, and if there's an amendment that we would want to put out there or be a part of, you've kind of been part of the discussion. So that's kind of how it works. All right.
So resolution 1 is the development of an alternative to high-stake MCAS tests. So really, in this, they're actually looking to dissolve. So the MASC Board of Directors has introduced a resolution advocating for development of an alternative to MCAS. The initiative emphasizes the access to high-quality public fund education is constitutional right and calls for an educational framework that supports diverse learning styles and promotes holistic student development from preschool through higher ed. So the resolution urges Massachusetts to enact a moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. So that's really the point I wanted to emphasize there. So, and we've had similar resolutions here before. So this is just my take on this. So I fully acknowledge the benefits of developing an alternative to high-stake MCAS testing. I think that as someone who's been involved in it since its inception, involved in testing students that in learning styles, there is no one way where we can really assess all learners. Having said that, I do have concerns about throwing something out without having something in its place, without a more detailed framework on how a new system would be developed, funded, implemented. I think that we run the risk of inconsistency and confusion, the way that it's written. So I would encourage the committee to consider those challenges and seek more clarity on aspects to this resolution, the way it's written.
Have any discussion on the committee side about resolution 1? And yes, Mr. Bizzano.
Yeah, it seems odd that we would adopt a resolution if there's a statewide referendum on
Yeah.
MCAS right now anyway, so I completely agree. I mean, everything that Dr. Campbell wrote up, I agree with. On top of that, it just seems like it's not the right time for this type of resolution anyway.
Very good point.
I'd agree. Anybody else have any additional thoughts? Ms. Shaw?
Yeah, what is the impact if the ballot initiative?
So I can speak to that.
Yeah.
So question 2, if that passes, students will still take MCAS,
Okay.
but it will not be a graduation requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll still get the
Okay.
data. and
Yep.
So
everything.
this is.
This is a moratorium effective immediately on MCAS testing.
Meaning it will stop entirely?
Yes.
That's what they're suggesting here with this resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hence my reason for, I think, I think it's important to have something in place that so that it helps us to support the students and not to have something in place. I think some
replacement.
development would need to take place before I would even support that myself.
Are there any
Ms. Shaw.
other, oh, sorry.
You're fine.
Are there any other ways that we could compile data to see without the MCAS testing? I personally, I do not like the MCAS, and I do not like high-stakes testing, just as a general rule. I do understand what you're saying, though, where we use it as a metric, and it's a standardized thing that we use as a metric. But is there any other way that we could compile that data without the MCAS testing?
Yeah, so the high stakes is 10th grade, as you pointed out, so it's a graduation requirement. We do, as a district, a number of assessments. We do benchmark assessments, we do assessments early on. We have common assessments, we have curriculum-based measures, there's multiple measures that we take. End of course exams, there's a whole host. That varies from school district to school district. So the question, I guess, to MASC, representing all districts, is should there be a common measure that we have, or multiple measures that we could use with students of diverse learning styles that we feel would be representational of that? We by the accountability standards that are set through ed reform and everything that's in place, we will always have to have a measure in place, and the state will have something that will be dictated based on the federal regulations. So, yes, there is, but I think it's more about having that
Streamline.
statewide agreement on what that would be, because we're going to be held accountable to something, and the state's going to really dictate that at the end of the day, what that would be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else? I'd have to agree. I mean, I'm not for high stakes tests. I think it's wild, but, and I'd also love to see us do something truncated for the MCAS, because the amount of time that is spent in the classroom to take those, or out of the classroom to take those exams, is really just incredible. Yeah, so I mean, I do think we need some sort of benchmark that's across the state, but what that looks like and how we can make it much shorter, I'd love to see happen. All right, so is the committee feeling comfortable about waiting till the end to do a resolution, or do we want to do, a motion, or do we want to do a motion for each resolution? What are we feeling? What is the will?
Maybe we should do one for each resolution.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I need a motion by somebody. Yes, Mr. Morgan.
I'll make a motion to recommending voting no on Resolution 1.
Yep. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Pisano, any questions on the motion?
Just a question.
Yes, Dr. Sorensen.
Dr. Campbell, and I hope this is inherent in the motion. Dr. Campbell noticed that the immediate termination of MCAS is the main reason why we would vote this resolution down.
Yes.
We're not taking a position on whether or not we think MCAS is valuable.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Mrs. Shaw.
Do we have to form it in the affirmative? Like form the question in the affirmative or no?
No, as long as you
Okay.
understand the will of the committee.
Okay.
So if it's easier for you, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so then we'll start with you, Mrs. Shaw.
So
We'll
a
do
vote
votes this
yes
way.
on this motion is to accept the superintendent's
Its recommendation.
recommendation.
Yeah, to vote no. All right, so now, Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Pisano.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Sorensen. And I vote yes. So we will vote this down as your first go-around. All right, so our next, we have Resolution 2, all right, Dr. Campbell?
Yeah, so Resolution 2 has to do with increasing the compulsory age of attendance. So the Brockton sponsored a resolution urging Mass legislators to increase the age from 16 to 18. There are some obviously benefits to that in terms of reduced dropout rates and improved graduation rates, and challenges in terms of supports and infrastructure to support kids that are struggling, which is our job. I also put a link in there that the majority of states currently have a compulsory education age of 17 or 18 when you look at across the state. So, based on the benefits and the challenges, though, my advice would be to support the increase of the compulsory age.
Anybody have any questions, Mrs. Shaw?
Do 16-year-olds need parental permission to withdraw from school at 16?
At 16, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
17.
Yeah.
Mrs. Jackson?
Excuse me, from a DEI perspective, have we looked at how this affects some of our diverse communities? Because I know that in certain cultures, kids will leave at a specific age to work because it's a cultural expectation that they will go to work at a certain time to support their family. I'm just asking, I have the same
I
view,
would
but-
say no question that we have a higher percentage of students that drop out of school from certain demographics and high-risk students, right?
Yeah.
And that so by supporting something like this, we're increasing that number, right? Because well, not increasing that number, but it's forcing us to make sure that we continue to support them beyond 16 for 2 years. But yes, but our goal is to get them all to graduate.
Right.
Yeah, but yes, it certainly, I think we have more students that are limited English and come from other demographics that may have a higher dropout rate than the aggregate, for sure.
Any additional
I'll make a
questions?
motion that we support the superintendent's recommendation to increase the dropout age to age 18,
Okay, I have a motion to it.
as indicated in the resolution.
Motion, I have a second.
A second.
Perfect. Mr. Pisano, any questions on the motion? No? Well, Mrs. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that is 6 and, wait, how many of us are there right now? There's 5 of us and yes, 1 opposed. So that motion does pass. All right, 3, resolution 3.
Yeah, so resolution 3 is actually a resolution similar to the one that Plymouth Public Schools has of safe storage of firearms. So Framingham School Committee put this resolution together again to urge secure firearms practices and to put some critical pieces in place, which really aligns with the SMART program. Many of the things the Plymouth Public School does as a result of school committee's resolution that was passed several years ago. So given the benefits of associated with promoting safe storage of firearms, I would think it would be advisable to support this resolution.
Anybody have any questions? Any desired motions?
I move that
Mrs. Jackson?
we accept the superintendent's recommendation to support this resolution.
Perfect, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Any questions on the motion? All right, none, we'll start with Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that was unanimous. Perfect. All right, resolution number 4.
Resolution 4 is School Bus Stop Arm Surveillance Act and Enforcement Penalties. So this is Peabody Public Schools sponsored a resolution advocating for enhanced safety measures to protect students boarding and disembarking from school bus. It is illegal, as you know, to pass a bus that is stopped, especially when the stop arm is extended. So this would implement digital video violation detection systems on school buses to monitor and to record violations. So this is something that Peabody School Committee is sponsoring. There's certainly benefits to that. I think that we know that this happens, and it's a very dangerous thing. The only challenge would be implementation costs, which would need to be considered, but given the benefits, I do think it would be advisable to support that, and it would be great if it came with some funding.
Exactly.
But it's hard to say no to something like this,
Yeah.
for sure.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Morgan?
Who's going to pay for the surveillance systems?
Yeah.
That's
and
the
I think
one
that's
question.
the piece, right?
Yeah.
That's the part that's the question. That would be really nice that if it came with additional funding from the state, because it adds another unfunded mandate, but it does
Right, 'cause
keep
we
our
could be
students
creating an
safer.
all unfunded mandate if we support this and it goes through, and then it gets kicked back to us.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, right now, how many cameras do we have on our buses? Approximately 6,
Our
7?
district-owned ones, we have 3, I believe, and our contracted ones, I think there are 6 or 7.
For
Yeah.
the arm, like the right one, like this kind?
This would be, no, not
Okay, I was gonna
but
say,
we
this is
have
in
them
addition to,
internally, but
yes.
this, maybe there's a, depending, or going way ahead of myself, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it always comes down to the funding.
It's not like the bus company's gonna give it to us for
I'm-
free.
I'm
Dr.
sure-
Sorensen?
I'm sure that there are many states, maybe Massachusetts is one of them, that uses video to monitor red lights and all those
Yep.
things. And the perennial question is, does the car violate does the car violate the light, or does the driver violate the light? And in this resolution, it's the car that violates. In this resolution, it's the car owner. But suppose
Yes.
I'm not driving my car.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a very good point.
Mrs. Shaw? Excuse me.
I just, for clarification, this resolution sounds like it gives us the ability to put
Yes, it
a
does. That's
camera,
correct.
but it doesn't force us to
That's
put
right.
a camera. So like, as far as the unfunded mandate goes, it wouldn't necessarily be a mandate, it would just be something that we could choose to do.
Which would add, yeah.
At least that's my reading of it. So that was just clarity.
Oh, Mrs. Jackson, thank you.
Along with that question, is there a way to loop this into a conversation with the bus companies? I mean, they're already, who pays for the cameras that are on the buses now?
I think it's passed on.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a separate, in our bid, we have a daily rate for each bus.
Okay.
We have a daily rate for each camera on the buses. So we pay something like $2.75 or so per day per bus
Okay.
for each camera. So if we were going out to bid if we go out to bid
Yeah.
in the next 3 years, it could be something we can include in the bid
Yeah.
as a requirement or an alternate if we go out to bid. If we were to purchase buses ourselves, it could be something that we could have installed on our buses. But again, either way, it's our cost in the end, really.
Yeah.
Any questions? Dr. Sorensen, I feel like you look like you have something to say. No?
I'm sure there's an answer to my question, because states all over this country have enforced traffic laws using cameras.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But if I'm not driving my car, why should I get the citation?
Usually the cameras catch the driver too.
Some pretty good
But this
resolution on those
resolution
cameras.
references just the vehicle, not the owner.
Yeah, that's true, but
Right.
usually, like, when you go through a toll, like, it gets your plate and it's a pay-by-plate, but you can look it up on, like, the Massachusetts DOT website and see the picture of yourself. My daughter always smiles.
That's cute.
That's why I know that.
All right, so what is the committee's thought on this, or motion? How would we like to proceed?
Did we hear the superintendent's recommendation?
Yes,
Support.
that we would support it, but it's a safety
Again, to the
piece.
point, it's not something that
Mrs.
is
Jackson?
necessarily enforced.
I agree that because it's not a mandate and it's more of a suggestion for implementation, that it seems like a good idea, but I also agree with what Dr. Sorensen is saying, that I feel like I would be happier if there was an amendment here that also included the driver and not just the vehicle.
Okay, so do we want to, I mean, in the past, we have put motions where we've not voted until, like, without putting a motion, gosh, sorry, I'm losing my voice here, until, like, we've put the motion, like, an amendment on the floor, and that's what we've been okay with voting on. If there was an amendment on the floor, if we did it or if they did it, if someone else did it, right? Didn't we do that, like, a couple of years
You've
ago?
had some
Yeah,
suggested
like
amendments that you would put on the floor, yep.
Yeah, like we could put an amendment on the floor, or we could hold off and abstain from this vote unless there's an amendment that we we could support. I mean, actually, Mrs. Shaw, sorry, knows the conversation that we've had.
Yeah, yeah.
You're nothing.
So it's really the will. What do you all think?
So we're not taking any action on it.
That's the question. If we want to take any action or no action, and just, we can give Mrs. Shaw the opportunity to take in consideration our discussion and vote as she feels when she gets there based on amendments and things like that. Would that be something? That
Yeah,
the
that's
ca-
fine. I'd feel most comfortable with that, I think.
So if someone would like to make that motion, I can't because our committee's over 5 people.
I move that we keep the voting until the discussion is had on the floor. Is that what?
I think if you use your best judgment on the floor based on what's happening in the discussion, if there are amendments or.
Okay, I move that I will use my best judgment.
But taking no action.
Taking
on
no
the
action.
resolution
Taking into.
As written, but
Yeah.
take into consideration the discussion here.
Yes,
for-
that's a good, I like the way you're saying it. Yeah, it's like what Dr. Campbell says, yep.
Yes.
It's
That.
recorded. Okay, so we've been a motion, have a second? Mrs. Jackson, thank you. Is any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll go with Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, perfect, thank you. And now we've got Resolution 5. Right, yeah.
Yeah, so this is, a lot of these, I say that there's benefits to support it, but there's a lot of quite careful things. So this, really, the Arlington School Committee has introduced a resolution to advocate for legislative changes to align municipal taxing authority with local contributions. So under the current framework, the local contribution is determined by property wealth, but municipalities are constrained by Proposition 2.5, which limits tax levies increase to 2.5 plus new growth. So the resolution calls for legislators to enact a law that would permit municipalities to increase their levy limits by the amount that the required local contribution exceeds the 2.5% threshold. So this would empower municipalities to raise local revenues, ensuring that they could adequately support education funding while maintaining fiscal stability. So there's benefits, obviously, to education by doing that, but there's also challenges in terms of, may lead to higher property taxes, which would be burdensome on the local taxpayer, the resistance, and just, there are some challenges. So I support the idea, but it's also very concerning that it would be, I think there's a lot of questions that would need to be answered, and so I'm not sure I would really support it the way it's written entirely.
Mrs. Jackson?
I was going to say, I have a lot of concerns about this one. Not that I think the current structure is an advisable structure, but I also feel like there are so many unanswered questions with this one that I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable supporting this as it's written.
Mrs. Shaw?
I want to know what Mr. Blaisdell thinks.
I would love to fund education more.
Yeah.
I really and truly would. But if you're allowing, in my opinion, if you're allowing towns to increase your tax levy beyond 2.5%, you could be pushing quite a few of your taxpayers out of town too. So though I like the idea, I don't think it's necessarily smart.
Dr. Sorensen?
There was a time when school committees had fiscal autonomy. If we passed a budget, as we all know, whatever that line was, the town had to pay for it. Sure, education got enough funding, but the animosity that grew out of that was pretty intense. And this brings us back in that direction, so I don't think we should support this.
Anybody else? Anything? I also think it's an equitable thing if you're looking from community to community. Maybe we can do one thing in Plymouth, but can you do that all across? Or can you do that, or we can't do in Plymouth and what other communities can do? So for me, it's an equity thing across the state. I don't know, do I have a motion? Mr. Morgan?
I'll make the motion not to support resolution Number
Five.
5.
Okay.
A second.
And Mrs. Jackson seconds it. Do you have any questions? No. All right, Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. Moving on to resolution number 6. Excuse me.
So Resolution 6 is support of legislation to improve the fiscal health of rural school districts. So this was done by Deerfield, Sutherland, Watley Frontier Regional School Committee, which I've never been to that part. Addressing the pressing financial challenges faced by rural communities. So despite the increase in state education funding following the Student Opportunity Act, these districts have received less than 1% of the funding. So they're looking, this resolution calls for legislators to enact a comprehensive legislation that incorporates all recommendations of the Commission's report, which was entitled A Sustainable Future for Rural Schools. And by doing so, seeks to enhance funding mechanisms, expand rural school aid grants, and address the unique financial challenges faced by these rural communities. There's certainly benefits to rural school districts. Obviously, they face higher per pupil operational costs due to low enrollment and geographic isolation, much like our challenges with transportation. This could ensure more stability for rural communities. We're not one of these. Determining how to allocate funds fairly and effectively would be complex, I think. In this, I think that ensuring that it achieves its goals would require careful monitoring and planning and adjustments. And even with increased funding, I think disparities may persist if the allocations are not carefully designed to address the needs of under-resourced rural districts. So I think my advice is to support the idea, but I don't know
The mechanism.
if to support the resolution necessarily as it's written.
Mrs. Jackson?
That was my question. The language seems a little ambiguous to me, like I'm not really sure exactly what I'm supporting with this resolution. Because it doesn't really say, I'm all for giving more funding to the rural schools or helping them find a way to accomplish their goals, but at the same time, there's no framework or nothing really spelled out in here that's like really speaks to
How it'll.
what exactly we're supporting.
Dr. Sorensen?
Very similar to Ms. Jackson's comment. I have not read all of the recommendations from the Legislative Commission on the fiscal health of rural schools. I have not read those recommendations, nor do I even know where to find them.
Right.
And they're asking me to vote on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could not vote on that.
Anybody else? So what is the will of the committee? Mrs. Jackson?
I vote that we do not support Resolution 6.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do I have a question on the motion? I'm just going to say I think that I will probably abstain only because the concept of it makes sense. So it's not that I don't support it, but it's that I think we need more information. So I would feel more comfortable if we did kind of what we did with question 3 and kind of listened to what was happening and then kind of went in and gave a best guess. So that will be my vote, but just as an FYI. Anybody else have? Yes, Mrs. Jackson.
Just to that point, I do hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that there's going to be enough discussion on the floor to
clarify.
really comprehensively address the resolution.
No, and I understand.
I do agree with what you're saying, though.
All right, anybody else? All right. Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote no. But this passed, so how many? There's 6 of us today, 5-1. Perfect, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
And now we've got resolution 6.
That was 6, right? So
mean,
resolution
sorry, 7.
7 is fully adjusting Chapter 70 aid for inflation. So this, we've talked about this here through many budget presentations in terms of that the Chapter 70 is not really adjusted for inflation. And this resolution from the Everett School Committee proposes to catch up, essentially, from Chapter 70 funding and accurately reflect the realized inflation since the enactment of the Student Opportunity Act. So there was approximately a 6% shortfall in that funding necessary to maintain adequate purchasing power in schools during the last couple of years. And we've talked about that rate of inflation in our presentation. So it calls for catching up. Certainly something that I support. I do think that there are challenges to that, understandably. The money needs to come from somewhere. So again, it's another thing I think would have a budgetary impact someplace, but it's certainly something that the idea I support.
Great. Anybody have any questions or a motion? Mrs. Jackson?
I like the idea of this. I kind of would go along the lines of no action because I'd want to see what happens on the floor. I don't feel like there's a lot here I'm concerned about where the money's coming from and what the trickle-down effect is and the equity of the entire thing. But I also do agree that Chapter 70 is extremely underfunded and would really want to see that catch up, but I want to see where it comes from before. So I want to have that conversation, and then I think Ms. Shaw would understand what the will of the committee as a whole is.
Anybody else? Any thoughts or a motion? Mr. Pisano?
No, I was just thinking.
Oh, sorry. We need a motion of some kind.
I will move for no action.
Can we take
Okay.
no action?
We can take no action
That's it.
and just move forward and move on. Okay. So we'll go on to Resolution 8. I mean 9. No.
You're
Sorry,
correct.
8. I'm sorry.
Resolution 8.
I had already rolled down. Sorry.
You may recognize this one. It was written by the
Oh,
Plymouth
yeah.
Public Schools.
Hey,
Yeah.
don't even need to take a vote
Equitable
on
funding
it,
to
do we?
non-regional school
Do we need
districts.
to vote?
I support this
Yeah,
resolution.
right. And we're done.
Don't move it.
So we've got a motion from Dr. Sorensen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Perfect, Mrs. Shaw, second. All right, no questions on the motion, I'm guessing. Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Pisano.
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Awesome. Perfect. I look forward to seeing what happens on the floor with that one.
Yes.
You have to text us
Me
all.
too.
Resolution 9.
Resolution 9, Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School proposed a resolution urging legislators to implement a tiered evaluation system for assessing school building costs under Chapter 74. So really looking at how that formula works for those types of buildings, specifically through MSBA, evaluating its projects at equal value. So there's certainly benefits. We know, having built a comprehensive vocational technical school and one that wasn't, there are certainly more costs that go into vocational education, and I'm sure that reimbursement rate, perhaps for some of that, isn't the same. So I do support the idea, as I tried to say here, but I think there are other challenges to implementation in terms of feasibility to really assess the potential impacts, the logistic requirements of a tiered evaluation system, really to figure out those challenges and not just to, implement something without having a well thought out plan.
Any thoughts? Any desires? Yes, Mr. Pisano.
So, are you saying don't support this, or not? I'm not.
I don't.
I'm
I
hearing
think there's
both.
more. I think there's more challenges to figuring out the devil's in the details
Okay.
with this. So I would almost abstain from a vote and hear more almost if we're if that were.
So we can take no action again if that's the will of the committee, or we can continue.
I feel like I would want to hear more before I like the idea.
Don't we all? Yeah.
I
right.
agree. I do. I like the idea too, but I do think, that there's some complexities here that would need to be figured out.
So no action. We're good with that, moving forward? Okay. Awesome. All right, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's some really interesting and really
There's,
detailed.
oh, no.
Oh, is there one more? Oh, there is
There's
10.
one
Geez,
more.
I thought there was only 9.
Yeah,
Gosh.
that's 10, and this one that is
did I
really
think that?
complex too.
Oh, this is,
So
yes.
here I am,
this
I'm
is
not
the
making,
other
I'm
one.
not being committal.
Right.
So this resolution, Tri-County Regional Technical High School, to address increasing demands on Chapter 74. So they're emphasizing that every student in Massachusetts should have an opportunity to pursue quality secondary ed, particularly in vocational technical fields. We talked about that tonight. Agree with that. So looking for an expansion of capacity of existing Chapter 74 to collaborate with districts, requesting a special commission to explore changes to laws and regulations governing MSBA, enhancing funding structures, eligibility standards, and assistance to expand technical programs in schools. I think it's great. I do think that there's a lot that would need to be ironed out here. I had more questions, I think, than opinions on this one in terms of the challenges of really, the funding, the logistics, just build a sustainability plan, maintenance.
Yeah.
It's very complex.
Great. Any thoughts from, yep, Mrs. Jackson?
I'd be interested to see where this conversation goes, just because this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Like, I really feel like there needs to be a substantial change to how we integrate people in these programs, and I really feel strongly that something like this would be a great idea. I just don't see the details in it yet that make me want to just say I want to fully support it, but I wouldn't readily vote no on it either.
Agreed. Anybody else? Is this another no action?
I like
You have a
We're
lot to
good?
think about, Mrs. Shaw.
No, you're gonna have so much fun just abstaining.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll take no action. Looks like everyone's good with it. All right, well, good luck. Hope it's gonna be really fun on the floor, and, yeah. And anybody who wants to go, it's Friday the 8th, right? Friday the 8th and then Saturday the 9th, I believe, right? Or is it Thursday, Friday?
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday, Friday.
I
So
have it in my calendar.
make sure that you're registered. I can never go. It doesn't fit my schedule, but I'm gonna go for I think 2 hours this time. I'm kind of excited to go. Well, there's gonna be a panel as part of it that Moms Demand Action is putting on that Dr. Campbell and I are gonna be a part of. I think you're on the panel, or yeah, that's what I thought.
I'll be there.
That we're going to talk about our resolution and kind of what we've been doing in the district. So I think that's really going to be an exciting thing. But yeah, just make sure you're registered. All right. Now moving on from this, our next piece we have, if I'm able to, is our superintendent's report. Right back at you, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. No Place for Hate Committee. Dr. Rogers has been working hand in hand for MLK weekend. As you know, it's going to be a Friday through Sunday opportunities that No Place for Hate is sponsoring. So we will be supporting a student essay contest, doing a performance through our VPA program at lunch. And as I said, Dr. Rogers has been doing a lot of work with the entire committee and Miss Nancy Morse from No Place for Hate. So look forward to that weekend. We are working, as many of you know already, on a budget media series with our Ed TV amazing crew. We're looking to put together a number of 6 short videos, which will be distributed from November through early December. So we're looking at doing one on the budget development process, one on changing student demographics and how that affects funding needs, transportation, facilities and maintenance, talk about our contracts and all of that, and then also what we do to promote transparency and engagement in the process. So we have some scripts going, we'll be doing some recordings, Dr. Blaisdell and I, and those will be going out through EdTV. We've also done, we had two other opportunities with the support of Ms. Jackson and Ms. Badger, the local scene. If you've ever seen the 45-minute show that was done, that went out, I think, last week. If I'm not mistaken. We also pushed it out through our channels, and WATD hosted us. That's not too long after that. I can't remember which day it was, on a 30-minute show. And we'll be doing another visit this Friday to the local scene to continue the conversation centered around transportation. They allowed us to come back on multiple occasions to kind of dig deeper on some of the budget issues and talking points that we've brought up, and we'll be doing that at ATD as well. Again, trying to get the word out in smaller, varied formats. And I think getting outside of our district platforms, which have been fantastic, has also helped us capture our larger audience, because I actually heard commentary from people at town meeting.
Yeah.
So that's great. So look forward to that. Dr. Blaisdell and I met with the Massachusetts Association of Pupil Transportation. We'll be undergoing a transportation study in the very near future. And hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to get a report from them. So I think it takes them 5 weeks to process once we get through that, so that we can look at not only our existing systems, but also some hypotheticals of what it would take in order to change any structure to our existing contracts or ownership of some of that. So we look forward to sharing that when that's done as well. I already mentioned the policy manual being up on MASC, which is great. Chronic absenteeism, you heard Mrs. Fry talking about this. We're doing a number of things, and this is really a big district push. We did a workshop at our last admin meeting, really looking at actions and systems that are in place, really looking at reviewing our data from last year. We've discussed doing promotions, and Mr. Janowitz has been instrumental, our truancy officer, on doing some promotions through EdTV and trying to get the word out as well. We know that there are a number of reasons why kids are absent, whether it's aversions, barriers, disengagement, misconceptions about how much attendance matters. So really trying to think about all of those factors and how we can influence that. So we had some great conversations, and we're doing a lot. A lot of our actions are connected to that. We had a wonderful meeting that I took part in last Thursday at Algonquin Heights, which will be happening monthly to help support truancy, absenteeism, and tardiness there. Dee Dee Winterson, who is the director over there, is fantastic. We had school truancy there, admin, YMCA, High Point Diversity Committee Chair and Vice Chair, Dee Dee, myself. It was a great conversation. We came up with a lot of specific things that we can do as a community at large to support that. So that was great, and we're going to continue to do that. Learning walks, and I know that people have already signed up. So if they start tomorrow, so if you're available to join us at Hedge at 8:45 and wanted to participate in something that we've been talking about for 4 years now, that will not be the only opportunity. We have 2 others scheduled. We have PCS and South Middle, and there'll be others over the course of the year as well. These are the walks with our administrative team. So I'm looking forward to those who participate to kind of share that process with you. You can go into classrooms, see things, and what we've been talking about for a long time. And then today, the last thing, we had right before we met for school committee, we had the first kickoff for our Volunteers in Public Schools program development. So I may have mentioned in the past that Falmouth has a wonderful program called VIPS, the Volunteers in Public Schools. It's 42 years in the making. It's phenomenal. They have over 1,000 volunteers, mentors that go into these schools, and they have just a well-established system. So with Mass Service Alliance and the support of Falmouth Public Schools, we're trying to replicate structures here. So we have a committee that met today of PTA members, administrators, community members. We have the chamber on, this, and we will be creating the structures, protocols, and practices that we need, kind of front-loading all the specific technical work before we start doing outreach. So I'm really looking forward to what comes of this, particularly in the spring. So really excited about that. So that's all I have this evening, Ms. Patrick.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No. Well, if anybody has any a burning desire to be involved in the budget discussion videos about a certain topic, let us know. We'd be happy to have. We've just been talking about Dr. Campbell and Dr. Blaisdell being kind of like the primary people, but we'll switch out as we go if you have, you know, a certain love for something within our budget that you really want to talk about. So please let us know as we're building that out. All right, now we have retirements, Dr. Campbell?
Yeah, sorry, my electronic school board is having a mind of its own.
I know
so
mine is
give me
too.
1 second. I don't know what's going on here. It like jumped way ahead, so trying to pull it up.
No worries. Don't worry. I feel like this is my opportunity that
We
I
have
need to
one
fill this-
retirement, and I'm trying to get to it. Thank you. We have one retirement to share. It's Monica Gilmore, school nurse from Nathaniel Morton, after 4 years, who has retired effective December 31st of this year.
You, Mr. Pisano?
Yep, on behalf of the committee and the district, I'd like to thank Nurse Gilmore for her 4 years of service to the district.
Awesome, thank you. All right, now we have, did it again, committee member reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Anybody? No, if nobody else has anything, I just want to make sure, and thank you, Mr. Morgan, for bringing this up. NSBA is April 4th to April 6th. We just need to remember we need a quorum for town meeting as we're making the decisions on whether people are going. If you're up for election, you're not able to go, just as a reminder. But please do let us know if you're interested. We want to make sure that, you know, we have a representation there, but I think we're going to need a quorum in April. So if we can maintain a quorum, that'd be lovely. So that's one thing. And then I wanted to thank Mrs. Jackson, Mr. Morgan, and Mrs. Shaw for attending caucuses and making sure that we were able to share our information about our bylaw change if the charter had passed, or that portion of the charter, Article 21 had passed, which it did not. So either way, we're moving forward in the spring with a bylaw change, and we'll just see what happens from there. But thank you for going. And another reminder that Springtown meeting, we have 18 precincts to cover. Some of the times they meet together, and you can meet with 3 at a time, which is nice, or more. But we are going to have to make sure that people are, you know, clearing a night or two, because they're going to meet several times, and we're going to need everyone on the committee to pick up a few meetings to be able to get to everything. You know, it's wonderful that, you know, Dr. Rogers and Dr. Campbell and Dr. Blaisdell all go out and they take their time, but I think it's really important that we are there as school committee members. So that's just my soapbox for this evening. And then another, you know, we've already mentioned a thank you to WATD for allowing us to be on the Kevin Tachi's show, as well as Local Scene. I think it's really important and really great that they're allowing us to partner with them in that way to get the word out, because I, like you, have heard a lot being given back or shared with us. And then today I had an opportunity for work to go to the Blue Futures Conference, and it was really nice to see our students there, and a great group. I thought it was much more, I think we had probably double the students we had last year than this year, and it was nice to see more female students involved because it's an engineering program. It was really nice to see more diversity in that group. And then I did get to go to Sweet Surrender at Plymouth North, and that was what comic timing. It was perfect at a lot of times, even when, you know, things unintentionally broke on the stage. They did a really great job just like going with it and rolling with it. So, you know, I know it's not talent, but they work really hard, and they do build off of some innate talent, I'd say. But sorry, Mr. Capel, I know you're probably watching and yelling at me through the TV, but they did a wonderful job. That's all I have to share. So, thank you. All right. The next piece we have is Plymouth Building Committee report. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, we met last week. The Oak Street project for the town, they're asking about doing a construction audit because the cost kept going up. So they may ask the building committee to participate in that. Received an update from the town manager on Memorial Hall, and an RFP is going to go out to do a top-to-bottom review of the building issues there and the feasibility study for repairs. We see an update on the fire station. Station 2 is essentially done except for some doors that need to go in, and the open house is scheduled for November 7th. Station 5, they're making progress, but they're still behind schedule. School roofs, for Federal Furnace, there's a punch list of items that need to be looked at. Roof scans are supposed to be done. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Thank you for that. And then we have personnel reports.
I
Dr.
actually
Campbell?
printed this one, so we have 5 certificated appointments, 11 classified, and 2 resignations to report this evening.
Thank you. And then we have our budget update. Dr. Blaisdell?
The item that's attached on the agenda is really what we had discussed at our retreat, or our workshop on that Saturday. So this is just a transfer report that basically shows that any transfers that we had really were just the reductions of the 10% that we had discussed. I'll work on trying to get this to you regularly on monthly, so at least you can see that. It's a little like it has already been talked about. You see this, but it's really not in a clear form. It's kind of embedded in the, so I'm going to try and get this a little clearer and put up some other reports for you.
So the public, I thought it was.
As well, yes, and it is posted. And like I said, all of those are for the 10% reductions that we did for salaries or other reductions that we had done in order to pay for contracts as well.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I know we've already kind of talked it through, but I do appreciate you taking the time to do this for us. I think it just continues to push forward our transparency that we're trying and getting that information out to the public and giving them an opportunity to see what's happening. So thank you for that. And then we have our capital improvement and equipment requests.
Yes, so the town obviously has requested that we redo our 10-year capital plan and then our FY26 capital improvement submissions. So there are 2 attachments to today's agenda. I'll talk a little bit about the FY26 capital submission because that's really more of the critical piece. The items that are on here are ordered in priority. I'll go through them real briefly, and if anybody has any questions, but the first one is really in regards to feasibility and design for a new elementary school if we were able to move to the next step. If we're not able to move to the next step, this item would be removed automatically. Yep. The second item is HVAC repair. One of the biggest issues that we have in this district is HVAC. So Mr. Durkee, our facilities director, is really looking at how do we kind of change the practice and really looking at, he had a company come in and do an audit of what really needs to be done. If you look at the audit, it's pages long and it's millions of dollars. So he's really trying to kind of target the priority needs first. Next is the Manamet Elementary School rubber roof replacement. You approved this last year and it was approved at town meeting. However, there was some additional scope when we went through the bid where we had to do some brickwork because the height of the roof came up too high to meet the window that's in the back. There's a window when you look at Manamet in the back. It's an old glass block window. It's when you do the roof work, the roof comes up and then meets the window. So they've got to do some masonry work to raise the brickwork to then meet the window. So that was discovered when we went to bid it.
And this 240 is just the additional funding, not the, because it was much more.
Yes. Yeah. When we looked at the roof price, all the bids came in exactly what we expected.
Yeah.
And then this.
So this was additional, and it wasn't cheap. Masonry work is not cheap. The next one is looking at PCIS fire alarm system, full system upgrade. The system, we have some areas where it doesn't ring. So this is it's to redo the entire system at PCIS. Next one is Plymouth South High School, the maintenance garage. We have a lot of equipment stored at the maintenance garage at the back of Plymouth South High School. This was not included in the renovation when it was done, so we have a roof. If you remember the old metal roof at the old Plymouth South High School, it has the same material there, so this would be looking to do some work there to repointing. We have a lot of our plows and so forth back there, and if you look at the pavement back there, I live off a dirt road, it's worse than living off that, because there's some potholes in areas back there. Plymouth North High School, this is looking at replacing the football field turf. If you notice, you probably can notice even when you go for graduation. If you walk on South Highs, there's a little bit of bounce to it. You walk at North, and it's like walking on concrete. We're at the lifespan of that. We're about 12, 13 years out from that being replaced, so it's past time. Let's see, PCIS is really looking at the parking lots, redoing the pavement, asphalt. We've been patching that parking lot year after year after year, and they're doing the best they can with the people that are coming out, so that really needs to be replaced at this time. District-wide, there's the next one, is looking at roof assessments and preventative maintenance. Again, same type idea with the HVAC. Mr. Durkee's really looking at how do we kind of address some of our roofing needs, and he's having an assessment going on as well to figure out what do we have to target first. So it'd be really looking at repairing roofs, not replacing roofs. The next two items are really, again, looking at, we have some buses that are 13, 14 years old, not 13, they're 2013s. So they're 11 years old, 100 and something thousand miles on them. And these are the buses, since we're doing more and more athletics and more field trips. Last week we had 59 trips go out. So we're not contracting with First Student. That's athletics and field trips and so forth. And 70 van is really looking at our special ed population and replacing some of the vans and adding some additional. Federal Furnace is in need of a multi-use tractor to do lawn and snow. Plymouth North, when you walk in that door, if you've noticed, in the past, we've had some flooding in our main lobby, and our custodians have done a great job cleaning it up, but we really shouldn't have to worry about water going into the front of Plymouth North High School after we've just built it 12 years ago. So this is really looking at a slit drain right across the entire front, and that does take some engineering as well.
There's one drain that's about this big, if you notice, where it says PNHS.
Yeah, at the main entrance.
It's literally this big. Sorry.
And that's right. The admin building here, it's really looking at doing some building envelope, not billing, but building envelope repairs, and the cupola as well. If you walk around this building, you'll see some areas that need some cement, the masonry work needs some work, and if you go around the back, you'll see some woodwork that's gone, not even just, it's gone. And then we obviously want to maintain the cupola as well. We don't want to lose that, because that would be a lot more than if we had to replace it. And we are in a historic district now too, so that comes into play. But what we're talking about is really not any major, just some repairs. West Elementary School, if you were to walk the sidewalks, tennis court, basketball court, the asphalt's in rough shape. South Elementary School, years ago, we added a parking lot where the baseball field was. That was only a binder coat. So if you were to drive on that, you'll start seeing some cracks. So we don't want to lose that, so that we want to make sure we do a final coat on that as well. So, because we don't want to have to redo that again. The next one is looking at stairwell renovations at Nathaniel Morton. This kind of goes in regards to what we've talked about for years, in regards to doing a little bit at Nathaniel Morton every year, now that we've got the roof fixed. And also we have to meet with we have to set up a meeting with the CPA to see if there's any CPA funds that might be available to us as well. So that's something that Mr. Durkee and I are planning on doing. We just haven't done that yet. Admin building, looking at the generator here, and then South Elementary School, looking at HVAC units replacement, and then obviously we're really getting into that window of ADA, because once we reach that 30%, we need to start looking at that. So it's a long list. It's $9.2 million worth of items, all things that need to be done, and we're not necessarily sure how much we'll receive, but this is what we would recommend at this time.
Anybody have any questions? This is an action item. If we don't have any questions, we just need to support, or I mean, I'm not gonna put that, I just need an action item. Need a motion from anybody. Yes, Mr. Morgan.
I'll make a motion to support the capital outlay expenditure as recommended.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Luis, did you just second it?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Pisano. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do you have any questions on the motion? Seeing none, we should be able to vote electronically. Perfect. That passes with one abstention. I mean, oh, sorry, not one. Sorry. Unanimously. One absent. I can't read. All right. Maybe it's getting past my bedtime. Sorry, guys. All right. Next thing, we've got, anybody have anything for unfinished or new business they'd like to add for a future meeting? No? Okay. Does anybody have anything they need removed from the consent agenda?
I just
Yes,
have
Mrs. Jackson.
one small change.
You just need, we'll just remove it out of the consent agenda. Is it a minutes?
Oh, the minutes, yeah.
Yes. So which one?
It was the 9/9 minutes. It's just that,
We can do it when we're done. We'll just remove the 9/9.
okay.
And then, anybody else need anything else removed? I also would like to remove the 9:23 minutes. So I'll remove both sets of minutes from that. And then, so now I need a motion to approve the consent agenda without the minutes included. Mr. Pisano.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the 2 sets of minutes removed.
Thank you. We have a second, Mrs. Jackson. Anybody have any questions on the motion? No, we should be able to vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, now we can go to the pieces that we pulled from the consent agenda. Okay, Mrs. Jackson, 9/9.
Just on the 9/9 minutes, it's a small change that I meant to email, so I apologize. John Platt's name is spelled wrong.
Perfect, okay.
So, and I know he would really want things to be done right on the minutes.
Then I also have a change on page 4. It looks like the sentence just needs to be finished. It says that Dr. Campbell advised, and then that they had, that they had and then didn't in it. So we just need to say that they had not, but one had been requested. So it just like ended. And then a really super picky one, 8.1, we just need a space after Mr. Trophy. There's like 2 words together there. For me, any other changes for September 9th? And then I have one really small thing on September 23rd, where 7.1 on the bottom, Model United, and it just doesn't have United Nations filled out, but other than that, they're fine. So, anybody have any additional? So then I just need a motion to accept the minutes with the edits. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
I move to approve the minutes with the noted edits.
Do I have a second? Mr. Morgan, thank you. Anybody have any questions on the motion? Seeing none, we should be able to vote.
Yeah, I don't know
Oh.
if something's going on here. It's not.
Oh, sorry.
Because we already voted.
Nope,
happening, so
sorry.
you might
I
have
was
to
thinking
take
it was separate, so we can't, because it's not separate. Okay. Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Corrections made.
All right, and if no one has anything else, then we can call the meeting to end at 9:27. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Thanks so much. I should also have